Connors is going to provide a bit of an overview of the peacemaking project for both the abuse and neglect cases and the juvenile delinquency cases, and maybe in the process we'll answer some of your questions, but after that we've consolidated some of the questions that you've asked, and we'll attempt to answer as many as we can after this.
I want to thank everybody, and I really want to thank, and we are so blessed to have Kate Prentice with us. She talks about just being an ordinary person, but anybody who's around her for about 34 seconds realizes that that's not true. She is accurate that what she exudes is in each of us. And the same strength that she shows, and the dignity and the gentleness, is in each of us. The reason that she is not ordinary is because she has let that come up. And the path that she is showing us is how we each let that come up. And I agree with you. We're born with it. It is a gift. The same gift to each of us. And then we do these stupid things while we walk in our physical bodies to divide ourselves and to hurt each other and to forget why we're here. I know from some of the questions put together, everybody wants to know things like, well, who's going to do it? And when are we going to do it? And how is it going to look? And where are we going to do it? And I am going to not answer those right now because those kinds of immediate questions are why we're in the mess we're in. I mean that sincerely. We, in our legal system, are completely consumed with linear thinking. I've thought about this a long time. I keep going back and trying to figure out where it came from. But it is true. We are event-focused. We define what we do and how we do it and when we do it and where we do it by an event. It comes in the door, and we start talking about that event, and we determine this is the truth of what happened. Here's how we apply the prohibition in the law. Here is the result, usually harmful to somebody, usually hurtful to somebody, and now we've efficiently handled that case and move on. It's in everywhere. We teach our law students in the adversarial process that the truth comes out of the adversarial process. And it goes way back to trial by ordeal, trial by holding burning handles, trial by whoever survives. You know, there's a reason that in our society we love all these survivor shows. Is that somehow whoever is the last one standing is the best. The last one standing is what we should emulate, how we resolve something. Even goes all the way back to the Talmud. You know, you look at the 7 lessons, 7 gifts to the sons of Noah. The first 6 are prohibitions about doing something, and the 7th one says, create a legal system and a court to enforce the law and ensure obedience. Now, I don't want anybody thinking I don't have great confidence in the good word, because there's a lot of other enlightened parts there to help us. My point is it comes from a very deep-rooted way of belief in the adversarial system. I was looking yesterday at Rule 611, the guidance to all of us in that adversarial system. That's the court rule. It's the same court rule in the federal court and every state court across the country. It defines the role of the judge in relation to the litigants and the attorneys. And I looked at what are the guiding principles, what are the words that stand out on that as opposed to our peacemaking. Our peacemaking, the 4 guiding principles of relationships. This idea we are profoundly connected. It isn't just some imaginary thing. It's rooted in science. The idea of responsibility. We have a responsibility within ourselves to bring our best selves to every situation. We have a responsibility collectively to help those when they are weak and behaving badly. That's when they need our strength the most. We have that collective responsibility to help that individual, and that individual then has a collective responsibility back to each of us. What Kay was saying this morning is so true about being thankful for that breath. It is true. It is a fact of science that those trees are breathing in our carbon dioxide and returning back oxygen to us. We are on a mouth-to-mouth resuscitation with those trees with every breath that we take. It is the same process that we need to do for each other in our courts. When we have gotten off track, when we are doing harm rather than healing, we need to understand that event as a product of that decision-making and find a way to bring our better selves, reclaim that within the individuals there, strive towards that, and release that negativity back into the ground for the earth to take it. Let's put it to good use and bring it back up. So when I looked at 611, here is the principles. Rather than relationships, responsibility, respect, and redirection, the principles that stand out in our adversarial system is, first of all, the court controls. Hey, hierarchy. I'm the head of the hierarchy. I think it stinks. Because I don't think it does a lot of good. Secondly, it talks about a singular truth, the ascertainment of the truth. That's not a small slip. We have a concept called proximate causation in the law. And the law is specifically written in certain cases to say a proximate cause, meaning there's more than one proximate cause. There's more than one contributing factor to the situation. And in certain situations, it's written as the proximate cause. The idea there can only be one reason, even though we know darn well one has to trump. Our court rule tells us as judges and lawyers and litigants, it's the ascertainment of the truth. It puts into place this notion that we label it, and the label is the definition of truth. It's the legal principle that trumps. The third is to avoid the needless consumption of time. This gets into our thinking and our system, that how fast we do something is somehow equated with justice. That efficiency is the measure of justice. And then fourth, I found it fascinating. It's the role of the judge to protect witnesses from undue harassment and unnecessary embarrassment. First blush, you might say, well, that's good, is it not? Ask yourself, well, why would we have to put that in the rule? It's an acknowledgement that the process is hurtful. It's an acknowledgement that the process demeans. It's an acknowledgement that the process leaves something to be desired. Now, for those who believe and love that process, do not get upset. I know it is necessary. It will always be there. It is part of the truth of that negative energy. And it is true that in some cases, as Professor Sankin was saying, we don't know whether peacemaking is going to work for every situation. But we know it can't hurt. It can't hurt. And it will heal. I have seen it heal. So for those who choose this other route, we have a process in place. Our role as peacemakers is to save as many as we can from making that bad choice for themselves. Because when an individual makes that bad choice, it affects not only them, it affects their family, it affects their community, it affects the fabric of our society. And then our profound interconnectedness it ripples all the way through. So, when we talk about peacemaking, and the concept of a circle, this circle is repeated all the way through, and the medicine wheel that Kay was talking about is a directional medicine wheel that we experience in our life journey in our bodies. From the moment that mystery comes into a baby till the moment of that mystery of the last breath, and whatever it was leaves this body. And you'll see that in medicine circles in the 4 directions, and so they talk about the east, the south, the west, and the north, and the energies, the sunrise, the sunset, high noon, midnight, the seasons. All of that is a way that we function in our physical body as we walk in that material world. And so we're centered in this sort of lateral, horizontal circle. We also have a circle that is happening that gives us this ideas that we try to bring our best selves towards. Something higher than ourselves and our physical bodies and our immediate desires. And as we are centered there, coming through us, our feet are on the ground, walking this road, being fed from underneath. We came out of the earth and go back to the earth. That's that concept we hear about of spirit and connecting us to the ground. So we've got another circle going this way. We're like 2 of the gyrometric things the kids have, you know?
Yeah.
We're in the middle. That which we are born with, which we are given, is the gift we are given, and no one takes it away from us unless we let them take it away from us. That's the centerpiece. Peacemaking is about understanding it begins within. It is Michael Jackson's song, The Man in the Mirror. You want to make a change in the world, you want to make it a better place, take a look in the mirror and start there. That's also what we have to center ourselves every day. When we bring to this work, when we start talking about, well, I really want to help our youth and our families. So first of all, we have to make sure we're doing that in a really humble way. How do we do that? We go back from within. We have to ask ourselves, are we centered? Are we centered? Here are some questions to ask ourselves as we begin this work. Think about it. Analyze the way you move in this world. How do you picture yourself in the act of locomotion? What kind of reaction do you create with the energy you send into the universe? What words would you use to describe the way you move through both the material and the spiritual world? And in a final analysis, like the exercise we did this morning, is your movement compatible with your greatest desire and goals? The reason I don't want to go right into the who, what, when, where, why, how, is because our linear thinking in our system is not interested in the why. We might have it as an element, but we never really answer it. Peacemaking, why is the most important question, and then the why behind the why. Kay was talking about it going and taking the time at the front end, going deeper, and deeper, and deeper. The more you do that, the more we're going to have outcomes that work and heal. So the values that we saw in the middle, and that exercise is so intriguing to me every time I see it. The values that come in the middle from all the different walks of life have this commonality. They always aspire towards something larger than the mundane. There is that phrase that say great minds talk about ideas, Average minds talk about events. Small minds talk about other people. We know the violence, the lateral violence of gossip. And our social discourse, I don't care what channel you turn on anymore or what time of day, is consumed with the lowest denominator, talking about other people, tearing them down. I suppose I can say, with some pride, at least our legal system has an average mind and talks about events. But why should we not? Why should we not, as part of our responsibility, through peacemaking, through restorative justice, talk about those higher values? We all voluntarily came up with them today and put them in the middle of what we like to think we bring to our work. Why should we not always center ourselves on that and ask ourselves, is what we are saying and doing consistent with achieving those values? And if not, why are we doing it? We're free to discard it. We're free to get rid of that negative way of approaching human conflict and exacerbating it by giving it more negativity. So I'd like to just quickly talk, if I can, about values in peacemaking, and then I'll talk about the specific application of where I think and we think it can work in our community, in the juvenile system. And I've got a lot of bright minds who don't just talk about events, who can come up and help answer questions. Those four principles of responsibility, relationships, responsibility, respect, and redirection. That sense of the power of the circle and the interconnectedness. When we talk about values, again, we have, and I agree with Kay, I am so thankful that we had this population, no matter how much we try to stamp it out and kill it, that it survived and it carried through these values. We're lucky we have it in this country. It's not just this country, it's all over the world. But they view the 7 grandfather teachings are those values. The basic difference between our current system and peacemaking, and it is our hope that we open the doors so we have this available as a concurrent path in our justice system. The basic difference is that our current system emphasizes the punishment of negative human behavior by focusing on the event. Peacemaking emphasizes the affirmation of positive human behavior. So peacemaking goes back, and while the event may have brought us together to resolve, we go back and look for guidance on those positive values. The 7 teachings, it's interesting, some of you were here a year and a half ago when we had a couple of our tribal elders from the Grand Traverse Bay bands come down and speak. And the question came up, said, what book would you have us read? And they talked about the Mishomis book. And there's an elder up in Canada, the Ojibwe Nation, who wrote this book. And it was these ideas, the 7 grandfather teachings. Yesterday I checked in on the Wi-Fi, put up 7 grandfather teachings, and here comes Wikipedia. We made it. There it is, the Mishomis book, and all the 7 grandfather teachings on Wikipedia. So I guess we must know what we're doing now. Let me tell you what's on Wikipedia. Here are the 7 teachings, and here are the comments about it. And I think these are the values that we should reflect on and continue to put in the table. First is wisdom. Wisdom. We heard Kay earlier say, this isn't some wisdom that we have. It's something from inside. Teaching says wisdom is to cherish knowledge, is to know wisdom. Wisdom is given by the Creator to be used for the good of people. I looked at that and I thought, how does that differ from what they tell me to do under Rule 611? Well, that tells me his wisdom is eternally seeking. Nobody has the answer. You're always learning. And it tells me it is divine. And for those who are not convinced that indigenous populations know what it is, let's go back to Socrates. That's always the root of our legal training. Socrates is the one that said wisdom begins in wonder. In wonder. Not knowing the answer, but always seeking that mystery. And the third thing I draw from that, none of us have any proprietary interest. Wisdom is a gift to be used for the good of all. None of us have it as a proprietary interest. Second principle is love. Love. And it is said in Wikipedia, to know peace, to know love is to know peace. To know love is to know peace. And when people are weak, they need our love the most. And that form of love, the strong to the weak when they're hurting, and the weak as they get strong back in, is mutual. So again, in the takeaway of that, if you think about it, love is the foundation of peace. What's the opposite? Hate's the foundation of war. It's a public discourse that constantly reaffirms hatred of each other. And reasons to hate each other is the foundation of war. When we speak and think hatred, we're just putting the building blocks for war. The third, notice how some of these words came out of your circles too. Respect. Respect. People who represent litigants in the court system talk about how their clients feel they've never heard. Professor Sankman talked about the difference of that young person coming in where suddenly they greeted him as a human being and showed concern. It is said the foundation of respect is to honor all creation, is to have respect. All of creation should be treated with respect. You must give respect if you wish to be respected. So again, that concept in the circle, to be respectful, to listen first and understand first before we seek to be listened to and understand. The third, there's a neat thing I saw at the Native American Student Association at the University of Michigan has sponsored the Mother Earth powwow for 44 years, I think. Is it now, Abby? Or 43, whatever those, something like that. I saw a great T-shirt there. It said, "Smudge, don't judge." It means get rid of the negative stuff, and let's bring in the good and quit being so judgmental about what brought everybody here. That's respect. The fourth teaching, the fourth value given to us, bravery. It says bravery is to face the foe with integrity. In the Anishinaabe language, which is the language in this peninsula that we live on and share, this word literally means the state of having a fearless heart. That's a good way to live. To do what is right even when the consequences are unpleasant. I once heard a Michigan Supreme Court justice talk about the motto which she lived by was "Do right, fear not." Do right, fear not. And I learned from William Thorne, a great Indian tribal leader and advocate. Some of you have met him. He always talked about stand up for your ally, even when they are not in the room. So that's living in a brave way. The fifth, honesty. Honesty is facing a situation. Honesty in facing a situation is to be brave. Always be honest in your word and your action. Now, here it starts, folks. Be honest with yourself first. Michael Jackson, look in the mirror. As you do that, you will find it more easy to be honest with others. Margaret Thatcher said, mind your thoughts because they become your words. Mind your words because they become your actions. Mind your actions because they become your habit. Mind your habit because it becomes your reputation. Mind your reputation becomes your future and your character. So it starts from within. The sixth, humility. Humility. A value that's almost ridiculed in much of our contemporary society as a weakness. Humility is the greatest strength of all. From the Anishinaabe, humility is to know yourself as a sacred part of creation. In this language, in the Anishinaabe language, the same word also means compassion. Compassion. You are equal to others, but you are not better. How much if we just bring that to the table in our everyday would so much the conflict take care of itself? We wouldn't need people like me. That would be a great day. The last one is truth. And when I went back to that gyroscope, when you think about the 7 directions, that idea of truth, we talked about Rule 611, the truth, concept of the circle of hearing all the perspectives, and collectively we have truth. Anishinaabe language, truth means truth is to know all of these things, all of these values. Speak the truth, do not deceive yourself or others. So I bring that, and I bring it up now. That's the why, and the why behind the why, and I want us to keep asking the why behind the why, behind the why, behind the why. I want us to be connected to that. I want us to be connected to the why, not the Wi-Fi. I want us to be plugged into that. Deeper. Deeper. But, and how it would look. We have tried it, and I think where peacemaking has the potential in every case is when the conflict, the event that comes through the doors, the people who have affected have ongoing relationships. At a minimum, we have to be considering when they go out that door, what have we done in this process to help heal that as opposed to continue to exacerbate the harm. So whenever we have ongoing relationships, obviously we need to take a look at that. Now, when individuals are so out of balance in between because they haven't asked themselves those daily things, and they are bent on harming others, then we need the current system to corral that behavior and to protect them and others. I acknowledge that. But if that individual can be reached, and we can reach that balance, we have the responsibility to make sure a path is open for that to happen. That is our collective responsibility to the individual. Everybody talks about accountability. Absolutely, we are accountable for our actions. But we are collectively accountable to each other, too. So, we have tried it, and successfully. You've heard a few stories in probate court, elder care, domestic relations, civil disputes, property disputes, neighborhood relations, a couple of different, what could have been charges, misdemeanors, that type of thing. But we've always felt from the beginning where the greatest work that can be done is with our youth. With our youth. Many times those involved in the juvenile justice system see two separate tracks far too much mutually exclusively. One, juvenile delinquency. The other, child protection, neglect, and abuse. We do see the events, the why behind the why. We do see events happening that bring the same youth or families in on both of those tracks. There are things that we know in terms of disconnectedness and the damage it does to youth when we rip them away from their families and their communities and their support and put them in strange situations. We know that has disastrous results. The work of our Native communities and the effect of our governmental policies in our Native communities has been the canary in the coal mine. We know the disastrous effects that has. We live in a system here in this state today, like the rest of the nation, where 60% of the children, if they are not placed in a home and come out of the graduate out of the foster care system without that reconnectedness with someone who cares and loves and nurtures, 60% of those children in this state and this country end up in one of three ways within a year. Homeless, incarcerated, or dead. 80% of the people in our prison system across this country have been in foster care. So we know the impact and the harm that can cause if we don't bring our best selves to that. Juvenile delinquency. Every day I walk out of my door into the hallway and I see far too many young people in orange suits and shackles being led into my colleagues' adult courtrooms to be sent off to prison. And as Ms. Edwards-Brown and I were talking about, we just put them in that garbage bag as Kate was talking about, and they're throwaway human beings. And the ripple effect when you see the people crying in the hall and their families, and little kids watching that happening, you see the ripple effect on that. You see the fear that's portrayed on the media every single night. We aren't supposed to trust each other. God, how are you going to love somebody if you're all full of fear about the person who might be right next to you? You see the damage of that. I think every youth that we can keep out of that system, my God, if it's 1 out of 100, it's worth the effort. It's worth the effort. So, who, what, when, where, how? Juvenile delinquency, neglect and abuse. We need to help in the neglect and abuse side. We need people from our community to be the support to help those parents who are struggling, to address those barriers, to get them through it. We need help from our community for those youth who are already traumatized, who are already frightened, to get through the experience. We need help from our community to help every youth who has been charged in the delinquency side of the portion, to help them understand the ripple effect of their decision-making and the consequences that face them if they continue to make those poor choices. Javonda Palmer read from one of our youth on our delinquency side. I read an apology letter just last week on our delinquency side. And the letter said, I realize that everything I do has an effect on others. I realize now that what I do can either do good and help people, or what I do can hurt people. I never even thought about that before. So, we need help there. On the neglect and abuse side, we don't control who comes in the doors in the courts all we can control is what we do in the process to try to send the people who come through back out in as healthy way as we can. We do that with humility because every time it doesn't work, we look at ourselves kind of like Bill Thorne, the great advocate, said we should be approaching judges. He was both a state judge and a tribal judge. So we should be approaching whenever we fail in terms of helping a youth, we should approach it like we just lost a patient on the operating table. What could we have done? What else could we have done? We lost that. Recommit ourselves with greater vigor to those who are still alive and still have hope. On the reunification side, we don't control who comes in the door. The petitioner who comes and asks for relief from the court and asks us to say there's two paths. Children aren't safe, and Judge, we ask you to terminate the parental rights of this parent so this child can be put up for adoption. We can find a safer home for it. And those cases are really more like a criminal case. It's asking for the loss of a liberty interest. It is an adversarial process. It has to be presented in an adversarial way. And so the role of the judge at that point is to follow the law, hear the evidence, apply the law, and have the result happen and have an appellate record. I understand that. Not much we can do with peacemaking there. Maybe afterwards try to help a parent that's lost their child just get through it. But 80%, maybe as high as 90% of the cases coming through the door, the stated goal is reunification. The stated goal is not to terminate the parental rights, but to help the parent overcome the barriers that caused the situation in the first place, and to reunify that family. Well, if that's the stated goal, that's just like the exercise we went through. We have the common goal, like the common value, and we have all of these people around the table who may have different perspectives of how to achieve it. But we listen to each of those perspectives and we decide how do we collectively help that happen. This community needs to be in those circles all the time, between every single court event. This community needs to be an equal in those circles. That's why we have set up a designated docket with referee Butterwick, who has her background in this training, to make sure that we do whatever we can to do it in those. On the delinquency side, we need help there too. We need help there too. Ms. Edwards-Brown, who has spent her entire lifetime devoted to this work, has promised me she will stay another 10 years with me. And that's the one who's heading it up on that delinquency side. I'll open it up for questions to all the fine people that are involved in this work. Let me just say how privileged I am to live in this community with all of you and to have this chance to do this work together.